Hello and welcome to another rostering video. Well, today we're in a bit of a different set. We're in my garage because we're going to be working on my Honda three-wheeler. Fun fact about these, in the early 90s, late 80s, these were stock manufacturing because they were so good, they were dangerous. So let's get on to what I'm going to be doing. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be repainting my kind of rusty old exhaust. This thing's like 30 years old, so kind of expected. So we're going to be respraying it in black. That's what it was at the factory, so I'm going to have to take it off. So I'll show you everything you should need to complete this sort of restoration type thing to it. So everything you should need is in this small pile right here. So starting there, we've got a basic set of sockets. You should only need a 10mm and a 12mm. Then we've got a socket and an extension lead. The extension lead is not a must, but it might be easier for access. And then we've got the paint, which is Halford's high temperature paint. Just want to show you here that you want to make sure you definitely get the very high temperature because the exhaust tends to be one of the hottest parts of the vehicle, so you want to be sure that you get the right temperature rated stuff. And then over here we've got stuff to clean it up. So we've got a wire brush attached to a drill, then we've got a different size one just in case it might be easy for access. Then we've got an abrasive wheel type thing, which will hopefully finish it up nicely. And then we've got a mat to spray it on so we don't make a mess of the floor or outside. Haven't decided where I'm painting it yet. So let's get on to what's going on. So in order to get access to the exhaust, we need to first of all take off the skid plate. So I'll just show you where this is. And all you need for this is a ratchet with a 12mm socket. If you've got the stock bolts, they should all be 12mm. They're all the same, and there should be 5 of them. 4 towards the back and 1 in the exhaust. So let's go. So we're now under the trike, so I'm going to get these 5 bolts removed, starting with the one in the exhaust and then working my way back. What I'm going to note now is that now that you're onto the last bolt, you might want to support it so that it doesn't drop. I've personally had this off recently, which is why the bolts have come out quite easily, but when I first took this off to be resprayed, I did need some WD-40 on some of the bolts and even a breaker bar because they were well rusted on there. Now that we've removed the skid plate, we're now clear to take off these exhaust bolts which attach the exhaust to the engine, and then that's it in terms of taking the exhaust out. They're the only 2 mounting bolts up on here, and then there's one on the skid plate. To remove the engine bolts, you need a 10mm on a socket. You could use a spanner because they're quite accessible, but I'm choosing to use a socket here. Place you probably would want to use WD-40. These are quite delicate, they're only a 10mm bolt, and they tend to be quite rusty from all the heat, expanding, contracting. So just be careful here, take your time, don't want to be snapping any bolts off. Now here is a little bit awkward, so this is a time where it would be quite convenient to be using my extension lead here. Now that's the exhaust completely attached. Something that has happened is here the whole stud has come out with the nut attached. I wouldn't really worry about this, just make sure you bolt it back in. It's just because the bolt is so rusted that the whole stud and bolt have come out as one unit. So now we should be ready to remove the whole exhaust system out of the three-wheeler. So now I believe I'm ready to take this out. I think I've got all the bolts out, but I've personally never taken one of these out myself either. So I'm learning along with you guys. I'm actually struggling here, so I'm just going to resort to the manual and I'm back in a minute. So it actually turns out I've missed a bolt. I believe it is this bolt. It goes all the way through to the exhaust system apparently according to the manual. This is why having the manual for your vehicle is great. I believe if I remove this I should be able to now get it out. It's also a 10mm, the same as the exhaust. So I'm now hoping I've removed that bolt that this exhaust system should pull straight out. Oh yeah. Just got to wiggle it to get the right angle. And there we go. I'll just show you the whole thing here. We can see it consists of a couple of different components. Starting up here, we have the flange that connects up to the header on the engine. Then we have this bit, which I believe acts as a heat shield. And then we have, I believe they call it the reverberator, or this is the main muffler part. This quietens it down, keeps it all sounding good. And then right at the back, we have the main muffler, which does have some packing in here. It's advised that if your engine's running a bit oily or is nearing a rebore, that you should check this regularly. You can see mine on the end there. It's got quite a bit of black and soot build-up, so I will certainly be giving that a clean before I spray it up. I'm going to give the whole thing a clean, so I'll show you now what I'm going to do. Just before I respray, I thought I'd take this opportunity to listen to a 4-stroke straight piped. So yeah. So I don't know whether you saw it out there on the camera, but she shoots flames. So just before I thought I'd do some stuff with the drill, I thought it'd be a good opportunity just to hose it down. Right, so now what I'm hoping to do is build a quick tool out of some reasonably thick wooden dowel, and the idea is I'm going to slide a piece of sandpaper in the dowel, and then I will be able to clean out the port which goes onto the exhaust and the actual output. This dowel is, I'd say, probably about 1 centimetre in diameter, so it'll still fit in a drill chuck. I'm just going to saw probably 10 centimetres off tops. As you'll be probably able to tell by this sawing, I'm not the most accurate sawer, but you want to go probably a good couple of centimetres down. I think I've done mine about 3 to 4 centimetres, just enough so you can get a little strip of sandpaper in there, which I'm going to grab. This feels good. I think this is about 180 probably, so that's probably about a 10 centimetre strip. Saw blades, it makes it quite a tight fit. You don't really want this stuck in your exhaust. It might be a nightmare to get out, or you never even see it again. It's a little dirty. So now I've got my drill with my wire wool piece on, so I'm now going to just wire wool down the whole exhaust system, and then after that I'll show you when I'm done. Quick note I'm going to make here is a ventilator is a good thing to have on. So I've now finished all the prep on the exhaust. I'm going to go outside and start painting with the very high temperature paint. Quick note before when you're doing painting, give it a good shake. You want to also make sure your product is very well prepped. Prep means as much as the paint. So when I'm going to go outside, I put a mat down to protect the grass. I've also gone outside to avoid overspray on any of the other vehicles inside the garage. So let's go. So I've now finished up painting the exhaust. I've now got 2 coats of the high temp paint on it. So this is it down here. It's come out a little bit greyer than I was expecting, but apparently it's black. I'll tell you what I think of it. It's Halford's heatproof paint. Hopefully it will last, but I think it's time for reassembly. So I'm going to start by getting the exhaust back in place, and I'm going to get the long bolt in, the bolt at the front, the 2 bolts at the front, and then hopefully the skid plate, and then we're all done. So cue the time lapse, I guess, and some banging tunes. Just got to be gentle to not scratch the paint. Inserting the this exhaust here. Something to be wary of that I wasn't is the tab. It needs to be in the engine block, otherwise it makes bolting it up a little bit awkward. We'll add the finishing touch. So there we go. That's my exhaust all freshly painted. It's a 4-port USB charger. This particular one was £4.50. It's got a detachable